Today, we are diving into one of the ancient world's greatest enigmas. We're talking about a civilization that was absolutely vast, incredibly sophisticated, and then it's like it just vanished. This is the story of the Indus Valley Civilization, a lost world whose secrets we are still uncovering, piece by piece. Okay, first things first, let's just wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this thing. Look at this map. This was not some little kingdom tucked away in a corner of the world. No, no. We are talking about a territory that, at its peak, completely dwarfed both ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. It stretched all the way from the Himalayas down to the Arabian Sea, covering huge chunks of modern-day Pakistan, Afghanistan, and India. Back in the Bronze Age, nobody else even came close. Which brings us to a really good question, right? A civilization this huge, this important, it should be as famous as the pyramids. So why isn't it? Well, it's because the people of the Indus left behind a profound and honestly a deeply frustrating silence. And that silence, that's where we have to start, with the most basic mystery of all. Who were these people, really? Here's the thing. We call them the Indus Valley Civilization, because their cities were built along the Indus River, but we have absolutely no clue what they called themselves. And the reason for that is staring us right in the face. Their writing, this beautiful, complex script, is a total mystery. Nobody has ever been able to crack it. The only real clue we've got comes from their neighbors, their trading partners. You see, Mesopotamian records, like this inscription from the legendary king Sargon of Akkad, they talk about this far-off land called Meluha. And ships from Meluha would show up carrying all the goods that were hallmarks of the Indus region, things like carnelian, ivory, and lapis lazuli. So for now, Meluha is the closest thing we have to their real name. It's our best guess. But, even if we can't read their words, their actions speak volumes. So let's turn to the most stunning evidence of their genius, their absolutely incredible cities. And this is where their organizational genius just blows you away. On the left, you've got the site plan for Mohenjo-daro. On the right, Harappa. Now, these are two of their biggest cities, separated by hundreds of miles, yet they are built on an almost identical grid. You see the pattern? There's a fortified upper area, the citadel, and then a sprawling lower town below. That kind of consistency over such a massive distance, it was unheard of back then. It just screams of a powerful central authority. And just check out the engineering skills on display here. This is the Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro. It's this massive public tank. But what's really mind-boggling is how they waterproofed it. The walls are made of these perfectly fitted bricks sealed with gypsum mortar. And then they lined the whole thing with a layer of natural tar. I mean, this was public works on a scale and with a precision that was just way, way ahead of its time. And this almost modern approach was everywhere in the city. Streets were laid out on a grid, aligned to catch the wind and create a natural air conditioning system. They had covered public drains with manholes for maintenance, and those drains were connected to private bathrooms in people's houses. Private bathrooms! That's something Rome wouldn't have for another 2,000 years. They even mass-produced standardized baked bricks. All of this points to a society that was just obsessed with order, with sanitation, and with incredible civic planning. So what was it actually like for the people living in these amazing cities? What powered their economy? How did they express themselves? Well, their prosperity was really built on a foundation of a few key resources. They mined copper from the hills to make tools, they grew cotton on the fertile plains to make textiles, and they brought down timber from the north for all their construction. But they were also master traders. They set up these huge networks that brought in luxury goods like lapis lazuli from as far away as modern-day Afghanistan. And their art is just as fascinating because it feels like there are two completely different things happening at the same time. On one hand, you get these very formal, almost stoic figures, like the famous priest king. He's rigid, he's hieratic. But then you get something like this incredible bronze dancing girl. I mean, look at her. She's naturalistic, she's fluid, she's absolutely bursting with life. It's like they had two completely different ways of seeing the world through art. And their craftsmanship went all the way down to everyday life. Archaeologists have found things like little terracotta toy carts, intricate jewelry from specialized workshops, and, this is a big one, a highly developed system of standardized weights and measures. That's the calling card of a sophisticated commercial society, a place where fair trade wasn't just hoped for, it was regulated. But if we want to get even closer to their beliefs, to their worldview, we have to look at the most iconic and mysterious artifacts they left behind. These tiny, intricately carved stone seals. These seals are just little masterpieces, and they are our best window into what these people believed. Take a look at this one. It shows a figure with 3 faces and a horned headdress, sitting in what looks a lot like a yoga pose, and he's surrounded by animals. A lot of scholars think this could be a proto-Shiva, an early version of one of the most important gods in Hinduism. It's a really tantalizing clue about their spiritual world. Nature worship was also clearly a huge deal for them. In this scene, you can see a horned deity that seems to be emerging from a sacred tree. And in front of her, there's a figure kneeling in worship, while a whole row of what look like 7 priestesses watches on. These aren't just simple pictures. They're telling us about complex myths and ceremonies. And here is the absolute kicker. On top of almost every single one of these thousands of seals, there is a line of script, a string of these elegant, mysterious symbols. This is their greatest secret. This beautiful writing holds the key to their name, their language, their history, everything. And we cannot read a single word. So what the experts think is that their script is probably logographic. Now what that means is, instead of having symbols for sounds, like in our alphabet, each symbol likely stands for a whole word or an idea. That makes it incredibly difficult to decipher unless you have a key. You know, something like the Rosetta Stone, which was the key to cracking Egyptian hieroglyphs. For the Indus script, we've never found that key. Which brings us to our final and maybe most haunting mystery. After centuries of stability and prosperity, what on earth happened to this incredibly advanced civilization? Right around 1900 BCE, the whole great urban experiment of the Indus Valley, it started to fall apart. The cities began showing signs of decay, and eventually people just walked away. So what happened? Well, archaeologists are still debating it, but 2 main theories have really come to the forefront. One is economic collapse. We know from those Mesopotamian records that their very lucrative sea trade eventually dried up, and that would have just shattered the economy of these big urban centers. The other big possibility is an environmental catastrophe. There's evidence the climate changed, leading to massive floods, rivers changing course, basically destroying their ability to grow food. The great cities crumbled into dust, that's true. But what happened to the people, to their ideas, to their culture? They didn't just vanish into thin air. It's much more likely that they migrated, they adapted, they blended into the surrounding landscape, and their traditions were carried on in new ways. The legacy of the Indus? Well, it isn't written in a book we can read. It's more like a silent ghost. Its influence woven into the very fabric of the cultures that came after, forever shaping the future of the Indian subcontinent.